Good afternoon and welcome to this special briefing with the Jerusalem Press Club. Israel marks Jerusalem Day 8 months into a war against Hamas in the south and Hezbollah in the north. How has this war impacted the demography and employment situation in the city? The Jerusalem Press Club is pleased to host the Jerusalem Institute for Policy Research and the head of data analysis and services at the Institute, Yair Assaf-Shapira, to brief us on the Institute's 2024 Facts and Trends study for this year. Hello, Yair, and thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Hello.
Can you tell me what the major trends are in Jerusalem, and if there are any new trends that have appeared since October 7th that are related to the war?
Well, the city of Jerusalem is by far the largest in Israel. So trends go slowly in such a large city. The city is over 1 million residents. In Israel, it's by far the largest, as I said. So we see the population growing at more or less the same rate that it does all years. And this is surprisingly more or less the same rate that Israel as a whole is growing. And we see that the balance between the two main populations of the city, Jews and Arabs, is more or less the same. It is going towards the Arab minority rising in its percentage, but very, very slowly. And the rate of this raise is declining itself. And so things are going more or less steadily. Since the war broke, we saw many people naturally lose their jobs, and mainly the Palestinians on the eastern side of the city. It stems mainly from the fact that they work in tourism and other economic branches around tourism and in construction. So we saw this being the main trend after October 7th.
Okay, you mentioned a trend of the Arab minority rising in its size, but you also mentioned a slowing down in fertility or the birth rate. Did I hear you correctly?
Yes, the fertility rate, the number of children, the TFR, total fertility rate, number of children that a woman is predicted to bear during her entire lifetime, is decaying. It's becoming lower and lower, both in the Israeli Arabs and in the Jerusalemites, the Palestinian Jerusalemites. And currently, it stands at approximately 2.8 children per woman, which is in Jerusalem much lower than the average for the Jewish woman, which stand at more than 4 children per woman. This is because of the large community of ultra-Orthodox in the city. So we do see this, as I said, the trend is going towards the Jewish majority, as if the Jewish minority is shrinking, but this trend is going to stop because of the decline in the total fertility rate.
Is this a new trend, or that is related to the war, or is the decline in fertility an ongoing trend that's been going on for a few years?
Well, it's been going on for a few years, been going on for a decade or even more. And what's interesting to see is this trend. There are many factors going into it and many explanations, but it's a global trend. And specifically in the Arab world around us, in the Middle East, we see it in almost all of the countries surrounding Israel, including the Palestinian Authority, and of course the Arab Israelis within Israel. And there are a few exceptions. For example, the Bedouins in the south have a very high TFR due to various reasons. But in Jerusalem, the trend is very close to the trend in the average of the Arabs in Israel.
Okay, regarding the employment situation in the city since the war, you said there's been it's been expected a huge decline in tourism and also construction. All the Palestinian and Arab workers have been initially barred from their jobs. Assuming a huge amount of people are not going to do a pivot in their careers, is there like any kind of prediction to how this might be resolved in the future?
Unfortunately, there is no prediction about this crisis going into any good way. But we do hope for tourism to bounce back. We did see it after the 2000 Intifada. We saw it coming back. This is more or less the only hope for the, if we want to see the East Jerusalemite market going back into full employment. We do see in very small numbers or smaller numbers, we do see some people doing, as you said, a change in career, and we do see many people going into services. The main one of them probably being education.
Okay, thank you for this. Now let's move on to Israel, to Jerusalem's second largest demographic, which is the ultra-Orthodox. This is Jerusalem's largest population. Am I correct?
Well, the three populations. What's interesting in Jerusalem population is that no one population is the majority. When you look at the three populations, the ultra-Orthodox, the Arabs, and the non-ultra-Orthodox Jews, no one of these populations is a majority. This is something which is unique to Jerusalem. And well, even within the Jewish population, the ultra-Orthodox are not a majority. They are a very large minority, but not a majority.
Okay, can we speak about perhaps another unexpected population in the city? Can you tell me about evacuees from various communities? How many of them ended up in the capital? How many left, etc.?
Yes, well, we do have data coming in from the government, the digital department of the government. They collected data about the people evacuated, and we saw some 14,000 people coming into Jerusalem from both from the north and from the south. But I must say that this figure is partial, because some of the people did come into Jerusalem but did not report it. So we don't know exactly how close this figure is to the true size of the evacuees population in the city. But we did see their impact, of course, on the city, especially during the first months of the war. We saw them in hotels. We saw them on the streets. We saw them demanding various services, coming into schools. It was as in other cities in Israel, Eilat, Tel Aviv. It was a huge thing.
Okay, I have a final question for you. Can you point to any single trend or trajectory of anything happening in the capital, basically, that you have been following in your reports annually, that has been significantly impacted since the war, that you can say this is a result of the war? Because Jerusalem is kind of isolated. It's had a few sirens, and it's usually kind of protected in this sense. So can you point to any specific thing that was different?
Well, as I said, this is a large ship. It does not turn around easily. So as I said about this, about the employment, we saw this surge in people, unemployed people. But I do want to point out a trend which is not following the war, a trend of the Palestinian women in Jerusalem, which is they work in very small percentages. But what we saw this year, again, we saw a rise in these percentages, which is very optimistic. Today it stands at 29% of the Palestinian women in Jerusalem in working ages, participating in the labor force. And labor force participation, the rise in labor force participation is a very optimistic thing. Another rise that we saw in labor force participation is of Haredi men, which is also on low percentages, higher than Palestinian women, but still low. So this is another reason to be optimistic on this Jerusalem Day.
Okay, it's good. It's good to end on a positive note. Your full report is published when on actual Jerusalem Day on Wednesday.
No, actually, the full report is available one day ahead usually. And it's also in print.
Okay, so this was the Hebrew version. I have with me a presentation of a very shortened English version of main statistics, which will be made available. And I thank you for this briefing. And if we'll have any questions, we'll forward them to you and the researchers at the Institute. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. And happy Jerusalem Day.
Happy Jerusalem Day to you too.